You've been waiting all week to start it. The trip you want to plan, the guitar you want to learn, the book you've been excited to write. You finally have the free afternoon, and somehow you still don't start. Why does this happen? You're not lazy. You're not lacking discipline. Something else is going on inside your brain, and once you understand it, this pattern starts to make a strange kind of sense. Think about the last time you avoided something you genuinely wanted to do. Maybe you scrolled your phone instead. Maybe you cleaned your kitchen instead, even though the kitchen wasn't that dirty. Maybe you told yourself you'd start after lunch, and then after lunch became after dinner. This isn't really about the task. It's about what the task represents. Psychologist Piers Steele, who has spent decades studying procrastination, found something surprising. People don't procrastinate because they don't care about a goal. They procrastinate most on the goals that matter to them emotionally. The bigger the meaning attached to a task, the more pressure builds around starting it. And pressure, to your brain, can feel a lot like danger. Here's the part most people miss. Your brain doesn't separate important from threatening. When something matters deeply to your identity, your brain treats the possibility of failing at it as a real risk. Not a risk to your body, a risk to your sense of self. So what does your brain do with risk? It avoids it. This is where the concept of fear of failure becomes the hidden engine behind procrastination. Not fear of the task itself, fear of what it would mean about you if you tried and it wasn't good enough. You want to write that book, but what if you write the first page and it's mediocre? Then you're not someone who's about to write a great book. You're someone who tried and produced something average. That thought is uncomfortable, so your brain finds a way to protect you from it. It delays. As long as you haven't started, the dream stays perfect. It exists only in your imagination, untouched by your actual ability. The moment you begin, the dream becomes real, with all its flaws and limitations. Starting threatens the fantasy. This is sometimes called the protection of potential. Psychologist Jihe Shin researched how people behave when their performance is being evaluated by others. She found that some people deliberately underprepare or delay, not because they don't want to succeed, but because not trying preserves the idea that they could have succeeded. If you don't show up fully, no one, including you, can prove that your best wasn't good enough. Notice what this means. Procrastination isn't a failure of motivation. It's an act of self-protection. Your brain is choosing comfort over confrontation. It's choosing the safety of maybe over the risk of not yet good enough. There's a second force working alongside this fear, and it has to do with how your brain processes time. Researcher George Ainsley studied something called temporal discounting. The idea is simple. Your brain values immediate rewards more than future ones, even when the future reward is bigger and more meaningful. A scroll on your phone gives your brain a small hit of relief right now. Starting your dream project gives you a much bigger reward, but it's delayed, uncertain, and effortful. Given a choice between guaranteed comfort now and uncertain meaning later, your brain, in that exact moment, often chooses comfort. Not because comfort is more valuable, because it's closer. This explains something strange about procrastination. The tasks you avoid most aren't always the boring ones. Often, they're the ones you care about the most. Because caring raises the emotional stakes, and high stakes plus uncertain outcome equals a brain that wants to retreat into something smaller and safer. So, you check your phone. You reorganize a drawer. You tell yourself you're not in the right headspace yet. What you're actually doing is avoiding the moment where your effort meets reality. Here is the part that changes everything once you really absorb it. The anxiety doesn't go away by waiting for motivation to magically appear. Motivation, in most cases, doesn't come before action. It comes after. Researcher Timothy Pitchell, who has spent his career studying procrastination at the university level, found that the relief people feel from starting a task is often stronger and faster than they expect. Many of his research participants reported that the dread they felt beforehand was worse than the actual task itself. The starting was the hardest part. Everything after that became easier than imagined. This is something summarized as a simple but powerful idea. Action creates motivation far more than motivation creates action. You don't need to feel ready. You need to begin small enough that your brain doesn't register it as threatening. This is why advice like write one sentence or practice for 2 minutes actually works, even though it sounds almost too simple to matter. A 2-minute commitment doesn't trigger your brain's figure of failure. It's too small to threaten your identity. But once you're 2 minutes in, you're already moving. And movement, once it starts, tends to continue. There's also something worth noticing about the stories you tell yourself while you delay. I work better under pressure. I just need the right mood. I'll start once things calm down. These phrases feel true in the moment, but they usually aren't predictions. They're justifications, built after the fact to make avoidance feel reasonable. Once you can recognize a justification as it happens, it loses some of its power. You start to see it for what it is, not a fact about how you work, a reflex your brain uses to protect you from discomfort. So what do you actually do with this? You stop waiting to feel ready, because readiness is rarely the thing that's missing. You shrink the task until it's too small to feel threatening. You let the first attempt be bad, on purpose, because a researcher, Timothy Pitchell, who has spent his career studying procrastination at the university level, found that the relief people feel from starting a task is often stronger and faster than they expect. Many of his research participants reported that the dread they felt beforehand was worse than the actual task itself. The starting was the hardest part. Everything after that became easier than imagined. This is something summarized as a simple but powerful idea. Action creates motivation far more than motivation creates action. You don't need to feel ready. You need to begin small enough that your brain doesn't register it as threatening. This is why advice like write one sentence or practice for 2 minutes actually works, even though it sounds almost too simple to matter. A 2-minute commitment doesn't trigger your brain's figure of failure. It's too small to threaten your identity. But once you're 2 minutes in, you're already moving. And movement, once it starts, tends to continue. There's also something worth noticing about the stories you tell yourself while you delay. I work better under pressure. I just need the right mood. I'll start once things calm down. These phrases feel true in the moment, but they usually aren't predictions. They're justifications, built after the fact to make avoidance feel reasonable. Once you can recognize a justification as it happens, it loses some of its power. You start to see it for what it is, not a fact about how you work, a reflex your brain uses to protect you from discomfort. So what do you actually do with this? You stop waiting to feel ready, because readiness is rarely the thing that's missing. You shrink the task until it's too small to feel threatening. You let the first attempt be bad, on purpose, because a bad first attempt is infinitely more valuable than a perfect idea that never left your head. And you remind yourself, especially in that exact moment of hesitation, that the discomfort you're feeling right now is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something matters. The next time you find yourself circling a task you actually care about, instead of starting it, pause for a second. Ask yourself what you're really protecting. Usually, it isn't your time. It's a comfortable, untested idea of what you're capable of. And the only way to find out what you're actually capable of is to risk disturbing that idea. You've been waiting all week to start it. Maybe the waiting was never about the timing at all. Maybe it was about protecting a version of yourself that only exists as long as you never try.